So when we look at Twitter, right, and we can see, okay, this is really hard. So here's my story about Twitter. It's a two-part story, and it's all pre Elon Musk ownership. So many years back, somebody accused me of horrible crimes on Twitter, and I, like anybody would, I was like, I'm in the public eye. People say bad things. I don't really, I brush it off, whatever.
Mhm.
But I'm like, this is actually really bad. Like accusing me of pedophilia, like that's just not okay. So I thought I'm going to report this. So I click report. I report the tweet, and there's 5 others, and I go through the process, and then I get an email that says, whatever, a couple hours later saying, thank you for your report. We're looking into this. Great. Okay, good. Then several hours further, I get an email back saying, sorry, we don't see anything here to violate our terms of use. And I'm like, okay. So I email Jack
Mhm.
and I say, Jack, come on, like this is ridiculous. And he emails back roughly saying, yeah, sorry, Jimmy, don't worry, we'll sort this out. And I just thought to myself, you know what? That's not the point, right? I'm Jimmy Wales. I know Jack Dorsey. I can email Jack Dorsey. He'll listen to me because he's got an email from me
Mhm.
and sorts it out for me. What about the teenager who's being bullied and is getting abuse, right? And getting accusations that aren't true? Are they getting the same kind of like really poor result in that case?
Mhm.
So fast forward a few years, same thing happens. The exact quote goes, please help me. I'm only 10 years old and Jimmy Wales raped me last week. It's like, come on, fuck off. Like, that's ridiculous. So I report, I'm like, this time I'm reporting, but I'm thinking, well, we'll see what happens. This one gets even worse because then I get same result, email back saying, sorry, we don't see any problems. So I raise it with other members of the board who I know and Jack. And I'm like, this is really ridiculous. Like,
Yeah.
this is outrageous. And some of the board members, friends of mine, sympathetic. And so good for them. But I actually got an email back then from the general counsel, head of trust and safety, saying, actually, there's nothing in this tweet that violates our terms of service. We don't regard, and gave reference to the Me Too movement. If we didn't allow accusations, the Me Too movement, it's an important thing. And I was like, you know what? Actually, if someone says I'm 10 years old and someone raped me last week, I think the advice should be, here's the phone number of the police. Like, you need to get the police involved. Twitter's not the place for that accusation. So even back then, by the way, they did delete those tweets, but I mean, the rationale they gave is spammy behavior.
Right.
So completely separate from abusing me, it was just like, oh, well, they were retweeting too often. Okay, whatever. So like, that's just broken. Like, that's a system that it's not working for people in the public eye. I'm sure it's not working for private people who get abuse. Really horrible abuse can happen. So how is that today? Well, it hasn't happened to me since Elon took over, but I don't see why it couldn't. And I suspect now if I send a report and email someone, there's no one there to
Mhm.
email me back because he's gotten rid of a lot of the trust and safety staff. So I suspect that problem is still really hard.
Just content moderation at huge scales.
At huge scales is really something. And I don't know the full answer to this. I mean, a piece of it could be, to say actually making specific allegations of crimes. This isn't the place to do that. We've got a huge database. If you've got an accusation of crime, here's who you should call: the police, the FBI, whatever it is. It's not to be done in public. And then you do face really complicated questions about Me Too movement and people coming forward in public and all of that. But it's like, probably you should talk to a journalist, right? Probably there are better avenues than just tweeting from an account that was created 10 days ago, obviously set up to abuse someone. So I think they could do a lot better. But I also admit it's a hard problem.
And there's also ways to indirectly or more humorously or more mocking way to make the same kinds of accusations. In fact, the accusations you mentioned, if I were to guess, don't go that viral because they're not funny enough or cutting enough. But if you make it witty and cutting and meme it somehow,
Yeah.
sometimes actually indirectly
For sure.
making the accusation
For
versus
sure.
directly making the accusation,
Yeah,
that can go viral and that can destroy reputations and
Yeah.
you get to watch yourself. Just all kinds of narratives take hold.
Yeah. No, I mean, I remember another case that didn't bother me because it wasn't of that nature. But somebody was saying, I'm sure you're making millions off of Wikipedia.
Mhm.
I'm like, no, actually, I don't even work there. I have no salary. And they're like, you're lying. I'm going to check your 990 form, which is the US form for tax reporting for charities. And I was like, yeah, here's the link. Go read it, and you'll see I'm listed as a board member, and my salary is listed as 0. So, you know, things like that. It's like, okay, that feels like you're wrong, but I can take that, and we can have that debate quite quickly. And again, it didn't go viral because it was kind of silly, and if anything would have gone viral, it was me responding.
Mhm.
But that's one where it's like, actually, I'm happy to respond because a lot of people don't know that I don't work there and that I don't make millions, and I'm not a billionaire. Well, they must know that because it's in most of the news media about me. But the other one I didn't respond to publicly because it's like Barbara Streisand effect. It's like sometimes calling attention to someone who's abusing you, who basically has no followers and so on, is just a waste.
And everything you're describing now is just something that all of us have to kind of learn, because everybody's in the public eye. I think when you have just 2 followers and you get bullied by one of the followers, it hurts just as much as when you have a large number.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
not your situation. I think is echoed in the situations of millions of other,
yeah,
especially teenagers and kids and so on.
yeah. I mean, it's actually an example. So we don't generally use my picture in the banners anymore on Wikipedia, but we did. And then we did an experiment one year where we tried other people's pictures. So one of our developers, and one guy, lovely, very sweet guy, and he doesn't look like your immediate thought of a nerdy Silicon Valley developer. He looks like a heavy metal dude
Hmm.
because he's cool.
Hmm.
And so suddenly here he is with long hair and tattoos, and there's his sort of say, here's what your money goes for. Here's my letter asking for support. And he got massive abuse from Wikipedia, like calling him creepy and like really massive. And this was being shown to 80 million people a day.
Yeah.
His picture, not the abuse, right? The abuse was elsewhere on the internet. And he was bothered by it. And I thought, you know what? There is a difference. I actually am in the public eye.
Yeah.
I get huge benefits from being in the public eye. I go around and make public speeches. If any random thing I think of, I can write and get it published in the New York Times, and have this interesting life. He's not a public figure, and so actually, he wasn't mad at us. He wasn't mad. It was just like, yeah, actually, suddenly being thrust in the public eye, and you get suddenly lots of abuse, which normally, if you're a teenager and somebody in your class is abusing you, it's not going to go viral. So it's going to be hurtful because it's local and it's your classmates or whatever. But when sort of ordinary people go viral in some abusive way, it's really, really quite tragic.
I don't know. I mean, even at a small scale, it feels viral. When 5
I
people,
suppose you're right. Yeah.
people at your school, and there's a rumor, and there's this feeling like you're surrounded, and nobody, and the feeling of loneliness. I think, which you're speaking to, when you don't have when you at least feel like you don't have a platform to defend yourself.
Yeah.
And then this powerlessness that I think a lot of teenagers definitely feel, and a lot of people.
I think you're right. Yeah.
And that, I think even when just like 2 people make up stuff about you or lie about you or say mean things about you or bully you, that can feel like a crowd.
Yeah. No,
that's and it's I mean, whatever that is in our genetics and our biology and the way our brain works, it just can be a terrifying experience. And somehow to correct that, I mean, I think because everybody feels the pain of that, everybody suffers the pain of that. I think we'll be forced to fix that as a society to figure out a way around that.
I think it's really hard to fix because I don't think that problem isn't necessarily new. Someone in high school who writes graffiti that says Becky is a slut and spreads a rumor about what Becky did last weekend, that's always been damaging. It's always been hurtful, and that's really hard.
Those kinds of attacks are as old as time itself. They precede the internet.